Hello, my brothers and sisters, and welcome to another episode of Off the Beaten Path, the show that looks at paranormal events both historically and in modern-day times. As always, I'm your host, Rev.Hagen, and as always, I would like to welcome our listeners at SCRMradio.com. That's Scream. Radio.com. For all your horror and paranormal needs, Scream is the way to go, Scream Radio. We believe that Halloween is a lifestyle, not just a holiday. It's the only 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week, 365-day-a-year live horror streaming radio station. Thank you. Now, it's not just shows like this. They have ghost stories, creepypasta, music, interviews with people in the horror industry. We do live streaming on YouTube as well as live streaming on some other platforms that we've recently been doing. It's a really exciting time to be on Scream Radio, and a really exciting thing, I think, for you guys to experience. So please check it out. That's Scream Radio, SCRMradio.com, okay? Now, along those lines, if you are a listener at Scream Radio, I hope you actually get to hear this. We are today discussing doomsday events, but particularly the one that's supposed to be happening today, September 23rd, 2017, is either supposed to be the beginning of the end, the beginning of the apocalypse, or the actual end of the world. And I'll tell you why in a little bit. But first, before we get into the nuts and bolts of this particular doomsday date and scenario, I'd like to go over some of the ones from the past. What has led up to this point? What has led us to believing that on September 23rd, 2017, our world as we know it is going to end? And I know it sounds like I'm making light of this, but this is very real for a lot of people. They really believe this scenario, and I'm not trying to down your beliefs in any way. But I will get into that as well in just a few minutes. Now, my first doomsday that I remember, I know that there were other ones before this, but it was in the late 80s, early 90s, and I was working at the mall, of all places, in this really cheesy, we would sell high-end weird electronics like holographic pyramids that tell the time, and that kind of BS stuff that nobody really ever needs, but it's kind of neat. And was really big in the late 70s, 80s. It was huge. So this was kind of riding the end of that wave, right? I was working at this particular shop, and I had found out through one of my coworkers. He said, "Hey, there's this guy that wrote. I read about in the paper that he's a mathematician, but had said he had figured out the math for Judgment Day in Revelations in the Bible, and that it's in 28 days." And he was really upset. He was really, really shaken up by it. I'll never forget that. And I was not. I thought it was very silly. So I went on the loudspeaker throughout our store and said, "Attention shoppers, there's less than 30 days till the end of the world. Please make your purchases and purchase wise, blah, 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 blah," thinking I was absolutely hilarious. And management did not think I was as funny as I thought I was, and they let me go. Unbelievable, because of the man. So that was the first doomsday that I remember. And of course, it came and went, The next real big one, I know there were a few in between here, but of course was Y2K, where some people thought it was a biblical thing, that this is the end of days. Other people really believed that our computers couldn't handle the turnover to 2000, that they weren't designed to go past a century, right? To go past they were only designed to go up to 99, right? So if we went into 100, it would reset everything and screw everything up. Now, that date, of course, came and went, and a lot of people said, "Oh, God, it was just another, conspiracy theory." The reality of that one, though, was a little scarier. I personally know people, and believe it or not, it's completely up to you, but I personally know people that worked on that to make sure that didn't happen. The year leading up to it, especially the months leading up to it. A really good friend of mine gets furious when people talk about how it was nothing. This whole gig was ridiculous because he worked his butt off, and sometimes 48 hours straight without any sleep to make sure everything kept running and everything kept running smoothly. So we didn't really dodge a bullet on that one. We worked our butt off to make sure that didn't happen. I think the reason that that's not well known is they don't want people to know how close we came to really screwing the pooch. And it was a huge, huge deal if you worked in that industry. Take that for what it's worth, though. If you don't believe it, you don't believe it. I believe the guys that were working on it when they told me that's what happened. But, that's just me. Kind of the next one of note, Pat Robertson wrote a book in 1990 called The New Millennium, right? And in it, he predicted through, I don't know, whatever, that the world was going to end in 2007. Now, I'm not trying to down anybody's religious beliefs or their personal beliefs here. I'm not a huge fan of Pat Robertson, just because for me, spirituality isn't about fear. Isn't about living your life afraid of other people, afraid of them, afraid of a God that's going to slap you down if you don't pronounce his name correctly. That's just me, though. I know a lot of people that do believe that do follow those tenets, that there are them, right? And we should be afraid of them. More power to you, as long as you're not infringing on me, brother and sisters, whatever the case may be. But I personally don't want to live in fear that way. That's my huge beef with Pat Robertson, who calls himself a minister. But of course, that date came and went as well, because here we are. It's 2017. He predicted the world was going to end in 2007. The next one we have is May 21st, 2011. The world was supposed to end. This claim was made by Harold Camping, who was a minister who had a radio show and actually had a really, really big following on this one. He said it was going to be caused by a series of earthquakes that were going to bring about the end of the world, bring about the apocalypse. And like I said, he had a pretty decent following. People quit their jobs. They liquidated their assets and donated their money to this guy and his family and their radio station. That date, of course, came and went. But when it did, on this one, he changed the date to October 31st, 2011. He said, well, my math was wrong. It's actually October 31st. It's Halloween 2011. When that date came and went, he apologized to his listeners profusely for his sinful statements, as he put it. I don't believe he gave back any of the money, but he was very apologetic for his sinful statements of somehow knowing the will of God. There are a lot of people that have tried to, and believe they have, figured out a mathematical equation from clues in the Bible that give us the date of the apocalypse. This is a very popular theme. Now, a lot of Christians, when it comes to the Bible, have been ready for the apocalypse since Revelations came out. Almost every generation believes it applies to them. This is everything they're talking. These things are happening now. Who knows? Who knows? There's. I'll get into prophecies in a little bit here as part of this, in this episode, my feelings on it. The big one, of course, was December 21st, 2012, when the Mayan calendar said that was it. That's when their calendar ended, and we were entering another phase. The Hopi Indians believed the same thing, that we would enter the fourth phase of man on this date. I actually really bought into this one. I was really kind of caught up in it, really nervous. I have a lot of, not a lot, excuse me, a little gassy today. But I do have friends that were preppers, or that are, and still are preppers. And a couple of them, like one in particular, had a 2-week party And if the apocalypse was going to come, he wanted all his friends there, and he has kind of a compound-esque thing going on there out in the mountains. Really nice guy, great to party with. Really good guy, but he fervently believed it. And I was close to joining him. I still have my go bag, for me and my youngest. Our backpacks, freeze-dried food, the whole deal. I know. And people call me crazy, but even when you're talking about a pandemic, they don't say if a pandemic is going to come. They say when the next pandemic will come and wipe out a lot of people on the planet. That stuff is scary to me, so I don't want to live my life in fear, but I'm going to prepare just in case, because you never know. So that one again came and went, which kind of leads us to this current. I know there's been a couple in between, but it's been 5 years since the last big one, and this is a really big deal on the internet with a lot of different Christian groups. That this date, September 23rd, 2017, will be the end of the world. So let's take a look at it. So now this particular theory is believed that Planet X, or the planet Nibiru, which is supposed to be a stray planet, is going to come through our solar system, come very close to the Earth, and wreak havoc on us. Now, when I say a rogue planet, what I mean is this. We've got our sun and the planets that go around the sun, yes? We're the third planet from the sun, the third rock from the sun, right? Like the old TV show. Nibiru has an orbit that's not of our solar system. Or some people believe that it's so far out there that it really only comes, get this, every 20,000 years. And supposedly every 20,000 years, this planet comes back close to the Earth and wreaks havoc on everything, right? We get this from a lot of different sources. The main source, though, is from the Anunnaki, that is from the Sumerians. The Sumerians believed that the Anunnaki came on the planet Nibiru, that came through our solar system, and they came down and created man as basically a slave race to mine gold, because they needed gold not just to replenish their atmosphere on Nibiru, but gold is a phenomenal conductor, and we use gold in a lot of our spaceships as well. It protects from the radiation, the whole 9 yards. When you get into the Sumerian interpretation of this stuff, or the Sumerian gods, it predates. Now, the Sumerians are kind of the birth of civilization as far as Western civilization is concerned. It's part of modern-day Iraq now, but at the time, we went from being hunters and gatherers, and within 100 years, we had a civilization. And I mean like cities, we had a sewage system, we had a court system, prostitution, thank you, a form of democracy, all within 100 years. Bam! And when we domesticated not just livestock, but even wheat, it's genetically different than the wheat that grows in the wild. All this happened within 100 years. So, Ancient Aliens, which is a very popular show on the History Channel, and Zecharia Sitchin and a lot of other people believe that the Anunnaki were actually aliens that came down and created man, again, to mine for gold. I believe the way the story goes, and nobody thumped me on this, but I believe the way the story goes is they created the first race to mine for gold, couldn't stand them, didn't want to deal with them, so they created a second race to deal with the first race, yes, which is us, that they could kind of stand. This does predate the Hebrew Bible, but a lot of the stories from the cuneiform that they found that relate the story of the Anunnaki to the Sumerians come from the Anunnaki that are in the Bible, are also in the Sumerian deal, the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve, Noah and the flood, the whole 9 yards. They even have an antagonist, Enki, who, depending on your interpretation, and there are different interpretations of this, is either Yahweh, the God, the good guy, or he is Lucifer, the depiction of Lucifer, or in the reverse. A lot of people believe that the Hebrews got their stories from the Sumerians, and that all civilization stems from there. All of the Abrahamic religions, period, stem from the Anunnakis, from the Sumerians. So that's where we get, I know that's a complicated answer, but that's where we get Nibiru and the story of Planet X. Now, if you go on the net right this second, you're on YouTube now. Finish this video, of course. Don't get crazy on me, okay? If you're watching this on YouTube and not on SCRMradio. But even if you're listening on SCRMradio, go to YouTube, type in Nibiru, type in Planet X. You will get so many hits and so many, right now, well, if you did it today, you'd just be flooded with doomsday stuff. But if you type in, Sumerian, Anunnaki, Nibiru, just those 3 words, you'll get everything from Zecharia Sitchin explaining the situation, because he was one of 5 or 10 people on the planet at the time when he was translating these cuneiform that we found from the Sumerians, right? These clay tablets that could translate it, and that number is even less now. And they found like 250,000 cuneiform tablets to translate with the stories of the Sumerian people. So there'll be a lot of that in there because that's where the story of Nibiru originates. I don't care what anybody says. How we got from the Sumerians and their story to today is, thank you very much, through different people on the internet. And in mostly evangelical Christian doctrine, believe it or not. The guy Steve Quayle. I mentioned this guy last week when we did a show on the Giants, right? Who believed that as far as the Giants were concerned, that they were the product of the Nephilim and the daughters of men, creating this giant race, because there's 32 races of giants mentioned in the Bible, and there's, I believe, 22 individuals. And I may have those numbers reversed because I do have dyslexia, but I don't think so. 22 actually individual giants that are mentioned in the Old Testament Bible. He believes that that gene, that genetic marker, is still out there, and that the government knows about that and is trying to find that lineage again and create super soldiers that are not only big and strong, but super smart, because their heads are bigger and they have a larger brain, according to Steve Quayle, right? No relation to Dan Quayle, I don't believe, the former Vice President of the United States, but he may be. Forgive me, I'm a little gassy again. Let me get some water. So, he also believes, this guy, the giant guy, that we live in the time of Noah. A modern day, that God's getting ready for another cleanse, in other words. The Christian God is fed up with humanity. He's about to send another disaster. This time could be fire or a solar flare. And that's what, by the way, to backtrack just for a second, that's what the Mayans believed, that it was going to be a solar event. A fire was going to cleanse the earth. The Hopi believed the same thing, by the way. For the December 12th, 2012 prophecy. And now in this one again, this guy Steve Quayle believes that we live in the time of Noah, of modern day Noah. The Nephilim are out here. The giants are out here doing bad things. Our government's trying to harness them. The giants themselves can smell bloodlines. They'll know who you are by your scent, who your lineage is by your scent. And that Planet X is coming. Somehow, they've incorporated, like I said, I firmly believe that the Sumerian religion from the Anunnaki is a direct correlation to the three Abrahamic religions that we have today. I'll get a lot of flack for that. I know that's just my personal opinion. I'm not trying to knock anybody's faith again. Geez, your faith is your faith. This is what makes sense to me as somebody that doesn't follow one of those three Abrahamic faiths. And yet, I'm still a minister in America. Weird. So it does make sense to me on a certain level that this evangelical guy, this Christian guy that believes that, giants are real, Noah's coming again, the second flood's coming again, would believe that Nibiru, Planet X, would be part of that equation, as weird as that is for modern-day Christianity. There's also a guy named David Meade, who's an astronomer, who apparently got his degree from some mysterious college in Kentucky. And don't start down in Kentucky, because not only was I born in Lexington, Kentucky, my brothers and sisters, but I have a lot of family in Kentucky, so ease up on the Kentucky jokes. Anyway, David Meade apparently got his degree in astronomy from some college in Kentucky. He's also a Christian numerologist and a self-described researcher. He believed that the Bible, it's clear in the Bible that it's going to be September 23rd, 2017, but it will start a series of events that bring about the apocalypse, right? It won't be, now this doesn't mean that it's going to be something you won't be able to tell, something very small, but there'll be a series of events, one starting today, a big one starting today, that's going to bring about the apocalypse, right? There's also a guy named Robert Beaker. Now, you can find all these guys on the internet, especially, they all have videos on YouTube. Robert Beaker, who's a missionary evangelical, who believes and can show you, pretty convincingly actually, a lot of these guys, but especially Bobby, Robert Beaker, can show you with an amazing array of charts and math why today, September 23rd, 2017, is the end of the world. Perry Stone, good night, speaks, says there's going to be a sign, some sort of sign in the sky from heaven that's going to tell us about the apocalypse, give us hope and dread, depending on what side of the gig you land on here. So that's why people believe today, the 23rd, is going to be the end of the world. Tell me what you think in the comments below if we're still around. And that's the other thing. If this does happen, only a few people will actually probably watch it before, I usually get about 25 hits the first day because I'm so insanely popular on the YouTube, as the kids saying. I think it has a lot to do with the amount of money we actually put into here, because we don't have any. Thank you very much. But like I said, a lot of people really believe this, and I'm not. I know I can come off as very sarcastic because I'm a very sarcastic person. I'm not trying to belittle anybody's beliefs here, but I have some very definite views on apocalyptic and prophetic thought. So these are my thoughts. When it comes to prophecy, especially because a lot of them seem to be very apocalyptic. There's not a lot of good prophecies, this on October 3rd, 2017, the sun's going to shine, everybody's going to love each other, it'll be fantastic. Never really heard a prophecy like that before. Wish there were more like that. But they're mostly gloom and doom. A lot of people follow Nostradamus, for example, and believe that he predicted 9/11, Napoleon, Hitler, that he wrote him in these stanzas. He was this prophet, But you've got to interpret it. Now, hindsight is definitely 20/20 when it comes to prophecy, right? And there's other prophets, modern day prophets, that apparently have hit, earthquake after earthquake, and disaster after disaster, and the crash of the monetary system, and on and on and on. Amazing people, right? What a horrible gift to have, I would think. God, I'd hate seeing that kind of thing all the time. The Nostradamus one, there was a show on the History Channel that went into his stanzas and his artwork that had me so convinced that in 2012, December 21st, the world was going to end. It seemed, we were aligned with the center of the galaxy, for goodness sakes, and on and on and on. Amazing stuff, right? The prophecies that we've heard today. Starting with, there's 28 shopping days left till the end of the world, to the one today, September 23rd, 2017. I choose not to live my life in fear. Now, there's a lot of people that believe if you don't pronounce God's name correctly, you're going to burn in hell. I don't believe, I know that's very simplistic. Again, I am not down in anybody's belief. That's just not how I live. I believe in that the three Norns, the three fates, cut the skein of my life the day that I was born. In other words, when I hit the air, I already have my end date. So I can be afraid of it all I want, but it's not going to change anything. I'm still going to have that end date. And even if that's not the case, nobody gets out of this alive. Nobody. Right? We all have an end date on this physical plane. So you can be afraid of it all you want, but it's not going to change anything. Nothing. We could be killed by Nibiru coming in sometime today, right? Wiping out the planet. You get hit by a bus crossing the street today. You get in a horrible accident dropping your kids off somewhere today, right? You could find out you have cancer today. There's all these horrible, horrible things that could happen to you today or not. So live your life in fear if that's your gig, or live it balls to the wall. All you have is today. Nobody can prove anything else. That all you can prove is today exists, right? If you've got somebody that you need to tell them you love them, you call them and tell them today, you know what, I love you. Love the shit out of you. You think some of your friends are good looking, male or female. Hey man, you're a good looking dude. Just thought you should know. Now you might think you're hitting on them. Who gives a shit? It's still, I guarantee you, it's still going to make them feel good. If there's somebody in your life that you have feelings for, but you have not said anything about it because you're too afraid, you don't know what's going on. No, I'm not talking about somebody who's married and you feel like, no, I really need to tell Diana that I love her. Damn the consequences. That's not what I'm talking about here. That would probably be a bad thing to do, okay? But somebody's single and you're single, and you've had a crush on this person forever, go on, tell them. I've had a crush on you for years because I think you're a dynamite person, and I think you're drop dead gorgeous. If you're female, I think you're talking to a guy, I think you're the most handsome guy I've ever met. Whatever the case may be. You ring my bell, To my friends that are watching this, to the people that I've had some really amazing and heartfelt emails that people have sent me. And thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I can get down because of some physical stuff that I have going on with me. And the death of my sister and a few other things that can really hit hard with me sometimes, really lay me low. And getting that kind of positive feedback that you enjoy the show and it brings you up when you're down, and that it helps educate you in some way, really, really does a number for me. It really makes my heart sing, and I really appreciate that. So, yeah, these prophecies, they could be true, they could not be true. My faith does not dictate that that's the deal. We don't live in fear. Please don't live in fear, I guess is the message that I'm trying to say. I hope you enjoyed the show today's show. I really enjoyed doing these. I really enjoyed doing this one, especially for you guys. It's not really a paranormal event, although I think all of these doomsday things are much more paranormal than any other kind of science that's out there. I think they're pretty out there. Really hope you dug it. If you do, I have a Patreon page. There's a link down there below. Please donate if you can to keep this thing going and to help us realize what this channel could really be, which is really exciting. Watch the video on that here and on the Patreon page. Please like, subscribe, comment here. If you got a show that you want to hear about or some topic, please leave it in the comments below or shoot me an email at rev.hagen, rev.hagen@gmail.com. Again, I hope you dug it. And as always, my brothers and sisters, you keep those heads up.